welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. So I got tied up this morning rescuing a small hedgehog, and I just thought it was sort of worthwhile mentioning on the video, you know, sort of what you should do. Now, what I've done is we discovered the small hedgehog. She was only sort of about that big, and at this time of the year, obviously during the sort of early part of the year and the summer, you know, if you do see a small hedgehog, then I would strongly advise you know, you leave it alone. Always put a bit of food out, but if you do put food out, you need to continue to put it out. Don't just do it as a one-off, because they will come back trying to find food. So you know, if you do want to put food out and feed wildlife, try to, you know, sort of keep it going, because they will start to rely on that food source. Obviously hedgehogs are sort of meat eaters, so what you need to be doing is putting out either cat food or dog food, that kind of, you know, sort of wet meat type food, and you know, they'll do really well on that. But what I wanted to mention to you was, obviously, when we discovered this small hedgehog this morning, she was only well, she was actually 204 grams in weight, so as you can imagine, you know, she was only sort of quite small, and obviously a lot of that is kind of bristle, so you know, the actual you know, hedgehog itself was really small. And I know from sort of experience that at this time of year, obviously we're into October now, we're nearly in November really, a hedgehog of that size, it's unlikely she's going to survive the winter on her own. So what I did was I took her to a lady who runs a small hedgehog sanctuary sort of thing, and she looks after them over the winter, and she'll bring her on during the winter, and then she'll release her again into the wild obviously next year. So obviously, you know, the wildlife that we do have in Britain and all over the world really, you know, we are really lucky to have, and it's always worthwhile looking at. So obviously the fact that she was out in the daylight kind of rings a bell that you know, things aren't quite you know, right. I mean, I saw her at about midday today, which most certainly isn't right. Hedgehogs you really shouldn't see until sort of as it's starting to go dark, and obviously then they'll sort of hunt through the night. But obviously, because I saw her today and she was also small, I thought it was probably wise that I took her to a sanctuary. And the woman thanked me and said, yes, you are right, you know, she's only 204 grams in weight, she most certainly wouldn't have survived the winter. So if you do see any hedgehogs around on your allotments or in your gardens or whatever during daylight hours, which is unusual, and if they're small, that means that they are you know, vulnerable and unlikely to survive the winter. I know the weather forecast has been that we're likely to have quite a bad winter this year. So if you do see any small hedgehogs, what I advise you do is just put a pair of garden gloves on, pick it up, put it into a box, and then if you go on the internet, there's various people's advertising on the internet that look after hedgehogs, or look in your local paper or whatever else, and you know, these people will help, and they'll basically bring them on over the winter. I wouldn't advise you to do it yourself, because I think it is a you know, sort of you know, quite a skilled job, so I would suggest you take it to somebody who knows what they're doing. But look out for your hedgehogs, because obviously they're a very worthwhile adversary to have in the garden. You know, they look after, apart from the fact they're very beautiful animals, they also look after you know, they eat all the slugs and the grubs and bits and bobs that we don't want in the garden. So please look out if you do find a hedgehog. Pick it up, put it in a box, keep it nice and warm. If it's got a cold stomach, don't feed it. If it has got a warm tummy, then you can give it something to eat. But I would advise that you contact somebody who knows what they're doing in your area, and take it in and get them to look after it. Okay, so it's getting to that time of year now where we really do need to be taking out the asparagus, and really more than anything, as soon as the leaves start to go a little bit yellow like that, you most certainly need to be getting it out now. Obviously in the coming months we're going to have quite a lot of sort of windy weather, and that's only going to serve to damage the roots of the asparagus. So even if it looks a little bit green, most certainly, you know, sort of mid-October towards, you know, to the end of October is really the time you need to be cutting out, and cut right down to the bottom of the plant. So what you want to do is cut the stalks at an angle like that. So if any water gets on there, not on this bit, obviously there's a bit in the ground that looks like that, so it actually rolls off. If you want to save any seed from asparagus, now this is the time to do it. And what you're looking for is the red berries like that, and these will most certainly dry it in the greenhouse, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But I'll just put these on one side, where I'll show you how to dry the asparagus seeds in a few moments. But what we need to be doing now is basically just be going through this, cutting out all of the asparagus, and it always seems a shame, and I always feel like it feels a little bit too early to be doing this, but what you're trying to avoid is the wind rocking the bases of the. If you imagine you've got quite a reasonable height on here, and as the plant kind of rocks backwards and forwards like that, it's going to be damaging the roots under the ground. So it is most certainly the best thing to do to be fetching them out. So what I'll do is I'll continue to cut out these. You're cutting them off about, I'd say about 3 inches off ground level. There's some good berries on there, so I'll show you the seeds from that one. I'll just continue cutting through here, getting all of these out, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, so I've had a question come through from Marina Wilson. She's been talking about birdhouse gourds and which are the best ones to have now. I don't know if you saw earlier on this season, I put out a video on making this one. Now this is the birdhouse gourd part here. I have sort of mounted it onto this bracket, which will enable me to put it on the greenhouse next year. It does need painting up. I've already painted it white, as you can see, and I've made like a little sort of porch on the front. And what I'll do is I'll put a link to the video down here if you want to see me making this. But I've made like a metal frame at the bottom, and there's this part here which enables me to attach it to the greenhouse, and I will be painting this up. On the video I did earlier, depending on the size that you make at the front here, will most certainly determine the type of birds that you attract. Now there are various sizes of hole that you can put here. Obviously the larger the hole, the larger the bird that you'll attract. Obviously you need to consider how big the gourd is. Obviously, you know, you couldn't get a pigeon inside here, but obviously this is good for sort of sparrows, blue tits, anything like that, chaffinches and stuff. So you know, you need to make the hole the right size there. And at the bottom as well, I don't know if you can see there, but I've made 2 holes there as well. That's obviously for drainage, so that if any water does get in there, it'll drain out. And that's basically, I've made them in the lowest point there, so it'll drain at the bottom. Now, with the gourds, Marina was asking what's the best type to buy now. These are actually called birdhouse gourds, and that's exactly what it said on the seed packets. They grow very much like cucumber plants. You know, the cucumber plants that grow up inside the greenhouse. You can grow them outside, and these things hang off the vine, and they'll grow to kind of that big. There were some slightly bigger ones than this on there, and what you need to do is, as soon as you've grown them up, you'll need some kind of framework or something for them to grow up. You can grow them along with your runner beans and stuff like that if you wish. You can grow them up the same canes. They grow probably in total, I don't know, maybe 20-25 foot in length. The actual vine, so they can grow quite, sort of quite high and far across. But they will produce quite a few of these gourds. And the best way to dry them is pick them at, as soon as they've started to ripen on the plant. What I suggest you do is cut them off. Obviously leave a little bit of stalk, as I've done there, and then put them in your greenhouse for the autumn months, kind of now. I was drying this out this time last year, and then put them in your greenhouse. Let them dry off in the greenhouse, and as far as you can. And then what I actually did with this one is, as soon as we got to kind of the winter months, I took it inside and I actually put it in our sort of cupboard where the central heating boilers, and kept it nice and warm in there. What you can find is you get a reasonable amount of sort of fungus and stuff growing on them if you're not careful. Like so what I did, as soon as I dried it out as best I could in the greenhouse, took it down to the house and I gave it a really good wash in the sink to get any kind of bacteria off the skin of it, and then I put it in by the central heating boiler and just kept it warm over winter. As soon as it got to the spring again, I then took it out of there and put it in the garage, and I continued to dry it in the garage. Now you'll know when it's ready to go, because if you shake it like that, if you grab it like that and shake it, you'll hear it rattling, and that's the seeds have been released inside. Also the skin goes quite hard. Don't try and do anything with them if the skin, if you tap it like that, you should get that sound. If you don't get that sound, it's not dry enough. Most certainly the skin will go brown, like a browny colour, and you can either choose to varnish it or, as I've done, paint it. But yeah, if you look for the seeds called birdhouse gourd, and I think there are a few different varieties. There's this that looks kind of like a witch's hat style, and then there's another one that looks sort of, it goes up and then you've got like this sort of second bit at the top, so it looks a little bit like, if you imagine that kind of gourd, it kind of looks like that, but this bit in the middle is thinner, so you've got like a lumpy bit at the top, goes thinner, and then it goes sort of big at the bottom like that. Yep. So there are a couple of varieties of birdhouse gourd that you can get. I opted for this one that looks like a witch's hat, but you can get other ones as well that look sort of more rounded at the top. They're all as good as each other, really. Obviously, if you want to attract larger birds, you'll need a larger gourd. I chose this one because it was a nice kind of size and shape. And as I say, off one plant you'll get possibly 10, 11, 12 of these gourds off each plant, so you don't need many plants to get quite a few gourds. You don't have to go to the extravagance of making a framework like this, like I've done. What you can do is literally drill a hole through the top here, and then you can hang it in a tree. But what you do need to do is, where the hole is, what you do need to do is put something in there to enable the birds to land to get in and out of it. So what I have seen on some of the pictures I've seen of other people doing it is they actually drill a hole all the way through from one side to the other, and they put a stick all the way through, like a piece of doweling, like 6mm wooden doweling. They'll put that all the way through to create a place for the bird to land. And I would suggest you have something like this over the hole to stop any water sort of getting in there. But obviously what you do need to do, as I say, is put some drain holes in the bottom just in case any water does. But that's your birdhouse gourd for you. Okay, just moving on to the outside tomatoes now. These are most certainly seeing the best, and I know it's such a shame, but a lot of these fruits, they've all got sort of disease on them now, really, and I think it's predominantly blight, to be honest with you. But what I'm going to do is basically just put these plants out and put all the strings off, and then what I'm going to do is just cut them off at the roots. And I'm going to put these on the bonfire to get rid of fruit and all. There's not a lot more we can do with these, really. It's a shame because there was a lot of tomatoes on here, really. But as you can see, they've all sort of got quite diseased, really. So all I'm going to do is just basically cut them out and dispose of the plants. Now these were the plants that were which were in the trial for blight. And as you can see, you know, they have actually got a bit of blight, where other tomatoes, like the tomatoes in the greenhouse, weren't anywhere near as affected. Oh, there's two on too bad. Some of these tomatoes are actually not too affected, but what I want to do is make sure that all of these, what I would suggest with the tomatoes is, if you're not going to burn them, most certainly get them in. Don't try and compost tomato plants, because they are, you know, if they're diseased or not, you know, the chances are that there are some bugs in there that you don't want to introduce back into the ground. So the best thing I can suggest is just get the plants, and you can see on there, that's most certainly blight on there. And if you are going from handling these plants to healthy plants, I mean, all of my healthy plants are finished now and they've come out, but what I would suggest is that you know, wash your hands and arms before you go near any healthy plants, because what you can have is the you know, the fungal spores on your hands, and then if you go in, even if you're just watering them and stuff like that, what you can have is you know, you can be transferring the fungal spores onto your healthy plants, which is obviously one thing you want to avoid. Now behind all of this is the comfrey, as you can see here. Now this year, because it was the first year the comfrey's been in, I haven't harvested it yet, because what I wanted was all of the energy to go into the roots. So now the season's over, what I'm going to do is just take this framework out of here, you know, all of these sticks and that, and then I'll be able to get to the comfrey. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest the comfrey, and I'm going to actually put it in a dustbin over the winter to sort of rot down, so I can use it in the spring as liquid fertiliser. Now, you know, if you have got any comfrey left, what you can do is, if you're planning to plant your potatoes in a given position, you can dig it into the ground where your potatoes are going to go, because all of the fertiliser from, you know, the nutrients from the comfrey is most certainly going to help your potatoes, which is actually one thing that my father does. But what you can do is chop it all down now, put it in a dustbin or in a black box, and then it'll rot down over the winter. Then it'll give you some liquid fertiliser for next year. What you might want to do is drain it off during the winter to just to save, you know, just to bottle it up so it doesn't evaporate. But so that's the tomatoes out of the way. Now what I'll do is I'll continue to tidy up all of this and get it sorted out. And probably not on this video, I'll probably show in the next video what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, so I'd just like to go through some of the questions that have come over in the last week or so. The first one's from Marina Wilson, and she was talking about the strawberries. I put a note out yesterday when I did last week when I did the tour, that some of the strawberries are flowering. I don't think they're going to come to anything, to be honest with you, because of the potential frosts we're going to get over the next month or so. But I don't think we're going to have enough time left in the season for a second lot of fruit to come, if you like. But she said that she's had flowers on hers, and you know, they're all sort of covered. Now last year we also got flowers all over the strawberries, so I I know most certainly, you know, it's not unusual to get flowers on the strawberry, but unfortunately they don't really amount to much this time of year. She also put a comment regarding runner beans. Now, the things with runner beans, they're just like other crops like cucumbers and stuff like that. The more you pick, the more they come. And with runner beans, if you keep picking them, they will keep coming. And it's not till you get the first frost really where the plants will start to die off. The one thing I will say though is always keep back some on the plant to give you seeds for next year. You know, if you are going to save your own seed, obviously, like I do. Otherwise, you'll be out buying them again. And I know, runner bean seeds aren't particularly cheap to buy. You know, they're sort of £3-4 a packet. So always leave some on the plant that you know that have got a little bit over to save yourself some seed for next year. But yeah, that was from Marina. The next one comes from Tina down at Allotment Upcycling, and she was saying her strawberries are also flowering, and she's got a bit of a problem with her leeks, and she said her leeks have gone silver. Now, I'm almost sure, Tina, that you've got the dreaded allium leaf miner, which is exactly the same problem that I had with my onions earlier in the year. And what you will find with leeks, they'll attack anything in the allium family. So leeks, onions, garlic, chives, anything like that. Or there are other bulb type flowers as well that aren't oniony type plants, if you like, but there are still in the allium family. That they'll sort of attack them as well. But what you get is you get like little lines forming, and the leaves will start to curl. You'll get little lines in the leaves, or the leaves will actually get severed off altogether, and you will get discoloration in the leaves. They'll start to look a bit patchy, and they can get to the point where the leeks will start to go like a silvery green colour, and I think that's the problem that Tina's got. Now, there's not a lot you can do, to be honest with you, Tina. I think what you're going to have to do is take your leeks out, any that are affected. I personally would suggest you take them out and get rid of them. What I would, if you have got it to the point where they're going kind of a silvery grey colour, what I would do is most certainly take the leek out as best you can, as early as you can, because what happens is these allium leaf miners, they have 2 generations in a year. So in other words, the eggs become pupae, become larvae, and then butterfly, moth, whatever, and then they'll lay again. So if you don't get rid of them, you'll potentially get all grubs in the ground for next year for, you know, other leeks and onion plants as well. So what I would suggest you do is take out the affected plants. If by far the majority of them are affected and some are also starting to show, I would suggest you take the lot out and just put them into the recycling bin or whatever, and get rid of them or burn them or whatever. I would suggest you put them in the bin or take them down the tip. And then what I suggest you do is dig the ground really well. What I mean, you need to go down a good spade depth and turn the ground upside down. So as I've explained in the past, what you're trying to do is the eggs and the larvae of the leaf miner will be on the surface or just below the surface of the ground. What you want to do is dig the ground and turn it upside down so that all of the eggs and larvae end up being sort of 9 inch, 10 inches below the ground, and that'll kill them off. What you need to do is turn the ground over. Don't worry about the ground being too, you know, sort of loose or whatever. Just basically just dig it out in big chunks and turn the whole thing upside down so they're in the ground, and then that'll basically kill them off. Obviously, things that you can do, sort of organically anyway, is next year, assuming that there's none in the ground, what you can do is any leek plants, onion plants, or anything like that, chives, garlic. What you can do is put a fleece over the plants, and what that'll do is it'll stop the allium leaf miner moth getting in there and laying their eggs on the plants in the first place. So that will most certainly stop it. You need to encourage animals into your allotment anyway, but things like birds, bats, hedgehogs, frogs, beetles, all of these things will eat the moth, the pupae, the caterpillar of the allium leaf miner, and they'll basically sort the problem out for you. So Obviously, if you can encourage any of those animals into your allotment, then most certainly do so, because they'll help you out. But I'm really sorry to hear that you've had that with your leeks, but that's the best thing I can advise you do. If there are any plants that are looking a little bit suspect, just whip them out and get rid of them, and then dig the ground over, so you're turning the soil upside down. So basically what you're trying to do is get the surface of the soil to be as best you can a foot underground, and then that'll kill them all off over the winter. Right, so the next comment comes from Don's allotment, and he was saying that he put his corn in because of the cold weather that we'd had. He said he put his corn in late June, and he'd also had a bad crop. And to be honest with you, I've also had a few other comments from people growing corn, and in all honesty, this most certainly is not the best corn I've ever had. I normally get, as I was explaining last week, I normally get 4 or 5 corn cobs on each plant, and I've basically got about 2 per plant this year. So that just goes to show that it's been a bit dry for corn. It was a cold start. I think they had a slow start this year. I know a lot of us had problems germinating the seeds. I mean, I put in 2 packets of seeds, 3 packets of corn seeds, sorry, and because the first 2 that I put in weren't very well, so I put in probably best part of 100 seeds, and I got about 20 plants out, so I was getting a sort of 1 in 5 success rate with germination. And after that, the plants haven't really grown. I mean, when I grew the corn 2 years ago, the plants were literally 7 foot, 8 foot tall, and I was getting 4 or 5 really nice size corn on the cobs up the plants. This year they're kind of 4 foot high, 3.5, 4 foot high, and I've just got a couple of corns in there, so they really haven't done very well this year anyway. And I've been driving around this morning, as I said. I took the hedgehog over to a person to look after it, and I drove through a few country lanes, and there's a few fields there with corn in. And the farmer's corn always looks really big and really healthy and stuff like that. And this year it doesn't look that good, to be honest with you. So I think even the farmers have suffered. And obviously they know, they grow the strongest strains, and they must certainly know what they're doing. So I would say it's not been a good year for corn at all, to be honest with you. So Don, don't worry. I think we're all in the same boat this year, mate. The next one comes from green-fingered Longley, and basically they asked if I'd have a look on their channel, and I have had a look, and I think she's put out some really nice little videos. A lot of the videos are quite short, they're only sort of 3 or 4 or 5 minutes long, but it's like a diary of the allotment. So I think if anybody's like to look at something a little bit different, I think I'd advise you go and have a look at the green-fingered Longleys on YouTube. Next one comes from Slasher, and he was saying, what do you do with your pumpkins, and what does it taste like? Well, pumpkins aren't the best tasting things in the world, to be honest with you, and in all honesty, they most certainly aren't the strongest tasting or anything like that. And in all honesty, the texture of pumpkin isn't brilliant either if you don't cook it right. So get yourself a nice pumpkin. Something like that is more than big enough. These massive things that you get in supermarkets and that, really, they're good for carving for Halloween and stuff, but they're not particularly good for eating. Some varieties of pumpkin are better than others for eating, to be honest with you. But what I find the problem is with pumpkins, you get this type, which are good for eating. You get this type, which are good for carving, really. So these ones are for Halloween, and you also get these sorts as well, which are quite nice for eating as well. But basically, what I find with pumpkin is basically a savoury vegetable, if you like. Well, it's actually a fruit, technically, but obviously you can make pumpkin pie with it. My wife's done that in the past, and that's quite nice. You mix it with treacle or something like that, and then you make pie. I don't know, I've never watched her do it, to be honest with you, but that's one thing you can make. What the best thing I would suggest you do is cut your pumpkin up, cut it in half, get all the seeds out from the inside, and then peel the skin off. So basically what you want is the fleshy part. And what you can do is, storing wise, what you can do is get a pumpkin that big, because really, I mean, you know, you'd only want half of that at a time. Cut it in half, and then peel all the skin off, get all the flesh off, and you can freeze that. They will store in a garage for quite a few months, to be honest with you, as you know, as they are like that. Always leave a little bit of stalk on the end. I find that you tend to store a lot better if you have a little bit of stalk left. But as soon as you've peeled it all off and got all the insides out, what I always do is suggest, if you make soup out of it or if you're making anything out of it, what I suggest you do is roast it. And basically what you need to do is coat it in oil, just a light coating of oil. Cut it into reasonably thin sections, like going around like that, and then once that way, so you end up with like sort of chip shaped, like about the size of my finger, probably a bit bigger, like my thumb. You can either put salt and pepper on, or you can even put a bit of honey on as well, if you like things a little bit sweeter. Roast them in the oven and give them a good slow roasting. You know, you're looking to do it for about an hour or so on a reasonably low heat. So gas mark 5 or 6, or an electric oven, you're probably looking at probably 100 degrees, possibly less. And then as soon as they've roasted, you can either eat them as they are on your Sunday lunch or whatever, or you can whiz them up with some other vegetables and make like a pumpkin type soup. The one thing you find with pumpkins is the texture's a little bit, can be, if it's not cooked properly, can be a little bit grainy, and so that's why you need to slow roast them, and then they do turn out quite nice. They're a very sweet fruit anyway, vegetable fruit, whatever they are, actually fruit, but so they're a reasonable sweet taste. They're quite unusual. I mean, if you compare them to a gourd, you know, like a butternut squash or something like that, these tend to be the texture of the flesh tends to be quite a lot denser. So it's more of a like a dense texture to it, where you know the particles are quite fine and dense. So I roast these in exactly the same way, and the texture of it's a lot sort of finer. The texture of a pumpkin can be a little bit coarse, so as I say, that's why you need to give it a good slow roast, and then whiz it up. You know, you can make some lovely soups with them, but I like them just roasted and on you know, as a side vegetable on a Sunday roast day, like. So that's what I basically would advise you do with pumpkins. Well, funnily enough, if you're in Britain, I'm not quite sure where you are, but if you are in Britain, if you go to Tesco this month, they've actually put out a magazine with recipes for pumpkins, so that's always worthwhile looking at. Okay, the next comment also comes from Slash, and he was saying about his onions. Now, he said what he's done is he's dried his onions, and he's everything seems to be okay, and he's tied them up and all the rest of it. And he was saying that some of the outer skins have gone wet. They haven't dried out properly. Now, I've seen this before in the past, and it's there's two possible things that you've done that have caused it. One, you've either left the onions in the ground too long, because as soon as an onion stops growing, and the tops are flopped over, you want to get them out of the ground really. If you've left them in the ground a little bit too long, what they can do, and you've had some wet weather, what can happen is the onion forms like a bowl shape in the ground, yeah, and then the roots obviously go down into the ground, and what can happen is water can sit in this bowl shape in the ground, which will then start to sort of rot the bottom of the onion, and that's when you see the first few skins of the onion starting to go a little bit rotten. The other thing that could have happened is you said when you tied them up you left them outside and they could have got wet. That could have caused it as well, but not to worry. What I would suggest you do is just remove the outer layers of the onion, and the bit that's on the inside will be perfectly okay to eat. So just have a quick feel around of your onions. Any that feel a little bit soft, take them out of the string and then just peel off the outer skins off there, and they'll be perfectly okay to use. But I would suggest if there are any that are wet, you sort them out now, get them out of the way of the rest, and use them up rather than trying to store them over the winter. So it'll only get worse as soon as it starts. And the next one, the comment, which is more of a thank you really. Stephen Butler and his wife put a
comment on the channel last week, and I just thought it was a really nice comment that you put on there, and I just wanted to say thank you for saying the kind of things you've said about the videos that I make. So thank you, Steve, and Mrs. Butler as well. So, I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you've got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.